Alright, guys, so I was surfing the internet and I came across this little beauty by Plunder That Booty. And we're going to check it out. I'm going to be reviewing it and, basically giving a review of what I think about it because he says it is one of the strongest Warlock builds he has ever played. I've done it. I'm really curious to see what this build's about. I can't tell by the thumbnails. Maybe it's Arc or something. I can't really tell. And then we're gonna see if maybe we can tweak it and make it a little bit better. So let's go.
So I truly believe that this has to be one of the strongest builds I have ever played on the Warlock. The
Oh, it's
gameplay you're watching is
prismatic.
from the Master Nightfall, where the enemy power level is 2050. I am currently 2018, so I'm 32 power level under in here, and I'm solo at
Okay.
that. So every enemy is focused on me, and as you can see, I am right out in the thick of things. There are 7 unstoppable champions and 4 barrier champions in here, along with the Knight mini-boss in the first area, the Ogre mini-boss inside, and the Death Tongue Acolyte that takes away all your abilities if you don't kill him quick enough. So a lot of beefier enemies. Then there's also the newer Banes on the enemies that Bungie added, and all the yellow barred knights in here that rush you with swords. This is one of the most difficult open areas in the game. Now this Warlock build thrives in activities with a lot of enemies. And lately Bungie has been adding more and more enemies in pretty much every way possible in all of the activities
Nice.
over the past year or two that have been coming out. It's all about chaining your super and your transcendence form. You can get your super back in 20 seconds, which is just crazy given that we're so underpowered in here. And we also got a couple different buffs to this super that make it one of the best roamers now. We also have access to a ton of powerful buffs and debuffs from every subclass
Okay,
to
let's
make our
go.
neutral game so
Let's
strong.
see the
This
build.
includes the Weaken debuff and the Devour buff from the Void subclass. We get the Amplified buff and the Jolt debuff from the Arc subclass. We add in the Radiant buff and the Ignition debuff for even more damage from the Solar subclass. And then the Unravel debuff and the Threadlings buff from the Strand subclass. And then we even get the Slow and Shatter debuff from the
Damn.
Stasis subclass. So there's a lot going on within the build, all happening at the same time, because all of these buffs and debuffs are just procced naturally throughout the gameplay that you're doing. As you can see, I'm just shooting my weapons, using my abilities, popping my super as soon as I get it, and using my transcendence as soon as I get it. Just all over and over, and all of that happens as you're just playing the game, which is amazing. Now all of this does start with Storm Trance, and it got a few different buffs in the way that we're playing it. So Storm Trance on its own got its increased damage versus non-champions in PvE by 20%. So it's really going to
Okay.
help with things like those red bar or yellow bar knights in this activity, right? Those beefier enemies. And it's going to make taking them down much easier. Now it also got its damage buffed last season, and since it's a roaming super, you get it 3 times as fast based on the damage you're dealing. And as you can see in the gameplay, our outgoing damage is so much at once that we can get it back in 20 seconds. Now we also got the new Bolt Charge keyword added for the Arc subclass, which we take advantage of with this build. So now we're adding in the bolt charges
Okay.
over and over that can happen while in your super or in your neutral gameplay that just adds overall damage. And again, that damage adds to your super coming back quicker. Now we're going to pair this build with the exotic Storm Dancer's Brace. And this got a
There it
few different
is.
changes this season. So first off, Bungie reduced the maximum amount of energy refunded from 50% down to 30%. So this is a
Okay.
bit of a nerf, right? But as you can see in the gameplay, if we're getting it back in 20 seconds, this really doesn't affect us very much. They also reduced the cost of Ionic Blink during your super by 50%. So now if you need to jump between groups of enemies, it's a lot easier to do so without using your super when you're blinking. But as you can see in the gameplay, I don't even blink that often, because in activities like this where there's so many enemies, you don't really need to be jumping from group to group. And then lastly, for Storm Dancer's Brace, Bungie increased the damage benefit per stack of Ascending Amplitude from 10% to 20%, and this stacks 10 times. So basically what I'm getting at overall is the super hits a lot harder now, and if you can get it back in 20 seconds, you're just going to clear groups and groups of enemies, even 32 power level under that you're seeing in the gameplay, and this is including beefy enemies, and I can't stress that enough, because Storm Trance back in the day was pretty bad against higher health targets, that's for sure. For your abilities, make sure to take Phoenix Dive, it just comes back quicker, and since we're always on the move, it's easier to use than your Rift.
I don't
You
like
also want to
Phoenix
use your
Dive.
Arcane Needle. We have this melee up so often, especially in Transcendence, that it's just a free way to throw the Unravel debuff out at everything. It's also going to give us Radiant on every melee we throw out for that 20% weapon damage bonus to all 3 of our weapons. Again, that's
Okay.
just more outgoing damage when you have that buff. We'll take the Storm Grenade as well. It got a couple buffs over the last few seasons, and it feels really good now, and this will also jolt entire groups of enemies, and gives us access to Amplified, For your 2 aspects, we'll take Devour first. That gives us the improved Devour effect, where we get that extra grenade energy and healing off of every kill we get. No matter
Okay.
where that source of kill is coming from our weapons or our abilities, or even in our super, every kill you get in your super is proccing Devour and keeping you topped off. We'll also take Hellion. This gives you that Solar Mortar. We can have this up quite often.
It's like all the same aspects I see on every Warlock build.
Champions if you need it to. For fragments on the build, we'll take Facet of Dominance. Your Void Grenades weaken targets, and your Arc Grenades jolt targets. This allows Storm Grenades
Every Warlock build.
and our Transcendence Grenade to weaken
Yeah.
enemies when it hits them. 15% debuff just means you're doing more damage. We'll take Facet of Dawn.
Okay.
Again, powered melee hits will give you
Make you
radiant.
radiant.
That's a 20% damage.
Every Warlock build.
You have 3 Arcane Needles at base, including Infinite
Wow.
in your Transcendence form. You're proccing this all the time. You want to take Facet of Protection. I've still seen some people not using this in PvE, whether it be on the Prismatic subclass or the Arc subclass. And on the Prismatic subclass, this is a 15% damage resistance when 3 or more enemies are close. And you guys might not think that 15% is much, but when you start stacking that with other damage resistant sources, it adds up very quickly. And it makes survivability and harder content that much easier. So if you only have this Facet of Protection up and the Amplified buff up, that alone is giving you roughly 30% damage reduction.
Okay.
That's pretty huge. I mean, your 100 resilience alone that you run, that gives you 30% damage reduction.
Who says I'm running 100
Alone
resilience?
is great damage reduction that you should have up all the time. For your next fragment, we'll take Facet of Hope. While you have an elemental buff, your class ability regenerates more quickly. I do like this because is that panic button that if you're weak, you just hit it and dive to the ground. But it also is proccing your Hellion, and if you can have Hellion up more often, that's just better overall. The last fragment is up to you. I would suggest taking one of the fragments that's going to boost your Transcendence energy gain based on what you're missing. So with the weapons that I was running with this build, I chose Facet of Devotion. Defeating targets afflicted with stasis or strand debuffs grants bonus to
Every Warlock.
The reason for this is I was using the new exotic SMG, and I was always spreading Unravel to everything. So I was defeating those enemies, and that would give me bonus Transcendence energy to my light side, right? So for this fragment slot, just choose the one that you're lacking. Whether it's the light side or the darkness side, whichever one you see coming back the slowest, then take a fragment here that benefits that. That way you're getting back to the Transcendence quicker. Now for weapons on the build, that's completely up to you. I use this with multiple loadouts.
I do not like builds that tell me what weapons I have to use in order to make the build good.
Rolling Storm and Ambitious Assassin, that plays really great into this build. Added overall damage because you get it out on the field and it's hitting multiple enemies. And it's just buffing your bolt charge that much quicker. I also paired that with Thunderlord, and then I had a strand sidearm in my primary just for barrier champions. That was one loadout.
Especially because your weapons are going to change depending on the champions.
Paired that with Indebted Kindness and the new Watchful Eye heavy machine gun, the Arc one from the season. So there's a ton of different options you can run here, but just make sure you get some champions covered and you pick the weapons that you play best with. For stats on the build, aim for 100 resilience. That's all you need to hit. It's your damage reduction in all activities. And everything else within the build, you don't need to worry about Recover or even Discipline because you have Devour and you have Phoenix Dive and Healing and all these different things going on within the build that you're not lacking for anything. Now for mods on the build, you're really just going to take anything that enhances whatever weapons you're using. So on the helmet, take a Siphon mod for whatever weapons you're getting the most kills with. You'll also add a Ashes to Assets because you are going to be getting quite a few grenade kills, especially in Transcendence form, but this will just give you bonus super energy. Then on your gauntlets, take a Focusing Strike. This grants class ability energy when you cause damage with a powered melee attack. Since you always have the Arcane Needle available and in Transcendence...
Okay, hang on. I already see... Wouldn't... You know what? I'm not going to interrupt. We'll talk about it later.
And your Solar Mortar. Then you can add in a Firepower here, so you generate Orbs of Power when you kill things with your grenade. And then lastly, an Arc Loader or a Strand Loader, so you can reload quicker. On the chest piece, this is just your damage resistance, so match whatever activity you're doing. And then on the boots, this is 3 weapon surges. You can either take 2 weapon surges of one kind. So for example, in my build, I had 1 Strand Surge and then 2 Arc Surge to buff my weapons up, right? That gives me a 17% damage boost to arc weapons and a 10% damage boost to my strand weapons.
I would not run 3 weapon surges.
And then in the class side,
that's wild.
To make those armor charges go to 15 seconds.
Okay, I have to interject here. Wait a minute. Why would you run 3 weapon surges when it is a strictly super and ability build? Like, the whole point of the build, he said, is to be spamming your super and abilities. which means the focus is not use your weapons. So I'm already seeing a ton of things that I would personally maybe change. I would have to give it a. I'm gonna have to give it a. I'll give it a try, but
Outgoing damage
I
as
don't know.
well. Also take a Reaper mod, so after you Phoenix dive and you kill an enemy, that spawns an extra orb of power and a powerful attraction, so you can collect those orbs of power nearby when you do dive to the ground. Now for artifact mods, make sure to take Unraveling Orbs and Horde Shuttle. That just plays into the whatever strand weapon you choose, and it's just going to add a lot of outgoing extra damage. The Unravel that's proccing left and right is extra damage, and the Threadlings that are popping off and hitting things are extra damage. You also want to take Flashover for that extra bolt charge damage, and that you also become amplified when you gain max bolt charges. And then Dielectric, defeating arc debuff targets grants you bolt charge. And then in the last column, I did have the Defibrillating Blast on. Stunning a champion grants maximum stacks of bolt charge, which instantly triggers that arc bolt, and it heals you and jolts combatants that it damages. This is more of these bolt charges coming down, and it's really nice because it's just added damage when you stun a champion, and you also get healed from that. And you
Okay.
jolt the champion, so it's going to jolt everything around it for extra damage. So I hope you guys give this build a shot. I really enjoyed it, and I think in high enemy dense activities like this, which every Grandmaster now is getting close to this, it'll perform greatly for you.
All right. What's funny about this is like that Storm Dancers, whatever it's called. I can't remember the name of it. That used to be one of. I used to use mainly that and Phoenix Protocol, right? Phoenix Protocol, because they're both chess pieces that would just automatically. Well, it wouldn't automatically, but they're both chess pieces that would give you your super energy back. So I ran like a triple 100 build with resilience, recovery, and intellect, and I would literally basically have unlimited supers for those two builds. And those were like the only two builds I ran for like a long time. Like I legit, well, I ran Void in PvP. I'm talking like pre-strand, like stasis, all that. Oh, stasis might have been, I can't remember, but yeah, those are like my two builds were those two, because you literally could have like unlimited supers. So really excited to get into this one and see how it performs. Fragment wise and things like that, like nothing too crazy. It's all the same fragments that I see on every Warlock build. So let's give it a try and see how it performs. See how this does. An unstoppable offer it. Bye bye. All right, so far not bad. Not bad. Already halfway to my super, and I'm only 40, so 40, 50 seconds, or whatever it is. Hmm. This is the problem I'm seeing off rip is like you can't really start the loop until you get transcendence and your super energy. So kind of stuck right now. Okay. Well, I got my super, but is there enough ads to pop it here? Let's see. Ooh, I like this. Oh, are you kidding me? I need to. I'm not creating darkness energy. That's a problem. I have a kinetic weapon instead of a dark weapon, and it's kind of messing the whole gameplay loop up, I guess. This guy keeps jumping, dude. It's so annoying. Oh my god. Is this barrier gonna jump again? He keeps jumping from me. Yep. Sorry, we're just gonna kill his minion. God damn, dude. This ain't working. Okay. I don't know what to do about that barrier. I need something long distance, or I don't know. He just keeps jumping across from me. That worked. Look at him. Now he's glitching. I don't like... Okay, here's one major problem I already see. I don't like not having a healing rift. I can't kill this barrier, dude. I literally can't kill him. Let's see. I can go radiant. Pop that. Pop that. You know, pop his bubble. We'll pop that. Pop that. Okay. Fucking finally. See, if I would have had a healing rift while fighting that barrier, I could have popped in and out of my healing rift. But because I'm using Phoenix Dive, because you get it back faster, I wasn't able to do that. So the barrier just kept wiping me. It's not... I can already see another huge problem with it. So, most of the time I'm playing with friends. Like 99.9% of the time I play this game, I'm playing with friends. And if you're not getting a lot of kills, you're not able to keep the gameplay loop up. Like, it's really hard to keep all of your stuff up. All of your abilities and super and everything. Also, with my playstyle, I'm very rarely, like, surrounded by 3 or more enemies. So I'm not taking advantage of that 15% damage reduction. Like, my playstyle is I play far back, I use ranged weapons. I'm not used to, like, this, like, super aggressive push style. So I'm really not taking advantage of the 15% damage reduction I'm supposed to be getting from being surrounded by 3 or more enemies. So I would definitely change that for my playstyle. Yeah, I do not like not having a healing rift. I don't like it. I don't care if it takes a couple more seconds to get it back. It's worth it to be able to like, you know, dip behind cover, get your health back, dip out, dip in and out. It's so worth it. All right, we switched it up a little bit longer range of weapons, and I put a healing rift on. So see how this does. It's not linear fusion. Why is it shows a picture of a linear fusion? What the fuck? That is so dumb. It's only fusion rifles, but it shows in the picture it has a fusion rifle and a linear fusion rifle. Well, that messes it up for me. Oh my god, that's so much better. Okay, that actually worked really well. Okay, I can use this to pick these guys off. Probably should have just thrown that grenade off red, but oh well. Okay, alright, this setup's working way better. Okay, I like this. Alright guys, so a pretty fun build overall. Definitely not one of the most overpowered builds that I have found for my playstyle, guys. Keep in mind that everybody's going to have a different playstyle. This build just wasn't for me. In my opinion, it was a very mid build. This one fragment I was thinking about taking off, Facet of Protection. I actually ended up leaving it on because I found that like the 1 or 2 times where I actually did get surrounded by enemies, it was super fun just jumping in there and just unloading with my abilities and my super and everything. So I ended up leaving that on. I didn't use it a lot. I didn't get surrounded a whole lot because of my playstyle and because of the content I was doing. But I ended up leaving it on just because of the fun factor of that. The problem with this build is it's a super niche build. Like your playstyle has to be super aggressive, and you would have to be doing something like a solo dungeon. I can see if your playstyle is super aggressive and you're soloing a dungeon, this build could absolutely be cracked. For my playstyle, like I said, it was mid at best. I would give this build a 5 out of 10. Even after tweak, I tried to tweak it so that it would fit my playstyle more. And even after tweaking it, like I said, it was mid at best. There's other builds that fit my playstyle a whole lot more. And that's the thing about content creators. Like I always tell people, like find a content creator that kind of has the same similar playstyle as you have, and they're probably going to have the kind of builds that you're looking for. So if you're more like me, where you're more like, you stay back and you like to like kind of pick things off and things like that, and you're not a titan just running in and smashing everything, then you'll probably enjoy the builds that I enjoy. So once again, like I said, it's too much of a niche build. It's too specific. It's too reliant on you have to be surrounded by ads in order to keep everything flowing, to keep like the whole chain going of like using your abilities, then using your super, then going transcendent, then using your abilities, using your super, going transcendent. Like it's very reliant on having a ton of ads in order to keep that whole chain going. And someone like me, like I like to play with my buddies. Like 99% of the time I'm playing Destiny, I'm playing with friends, especially high-end content like dungeons and raids and things like that. So like in my opinion, like I said, I give it a 5 out of 10. Nothing special. I feel like there are definitely better builds out there for me. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thank you so much for watching. I am the one and only Z. Bye bye.